So, operating a business can be confusing with our changing tax laws. How much working capital should a business maintain, and how might this look different with the potential tax changes?
Yeah, so typically what lenders want to see is a working capital ratio of about 1.5.
Okay.
So for anybody that doesn't know, working capital is essentially your current assets divided by your current liabilities. It's trying to get at, do you have enough that you can convert into cash to pay what you're going to have to pay over the course of the next year?
Okay.
So that's what we mean by current assets, current liability. What can you convert to cash in the next year, and what do you have to pay in the next year, essentially? So banks typically like to see a ratio of 1.5. So you need to have 50% more capital than what you're going to need in the next year.
How might business owners be proactive in business planning while being mindful of tax law?
I think there's so much change, and from one year to the next, tax law is so different. Your tax liability could be so different. They've added so many layers of complication because there are certain tax benefits that impact certain industries. There are certain tax implications that hurt certain industries because you got to get to that zero sum game. So it depends a lot on what industry you're in. But I think what you have to do is look at your individual circumstances, and you have to project out, I would say, a minimum of 3 years, probably 4 or 5 years, based on current law. What are those tax implications going to be? What's the impact to your cash flow going to be? Because you don't want to get to year two and realize, hey, there's a $3 million difference in our taxes we didn't take into consideration.
Okay.
So just because your taxes were a certain way last year, I guarantee you they're probably not the same way this year. And from this year, they are not going to be the same way next year. So you really have to plan that out over multiple years and see what the impact to your cash flow is going to be.
I think that's a big takeaway, is that it may not be for everyone to be an owner of a business. And I'd love to hear more of how you both feel about that, and why you obviously have been so successful.
Yeah, so I'll start, Mackenzie, and then I'll let you chime in. But I think it was on the table for Mackenzie and I from the beginning, that ownership was a potential in the future. I know in my interview on the last day in the last hour when they were offering me the job, they were just like, "Oh, by the way, this is an opportunity for you in the future." So definitely, even my mindset going into Cornerstone from the beginning was, "Oh wow, this is a great path for me." So I think there was definitely a mental shift, even going into the job, of like, I'm going to treat this as if I am the owner because I will be one day. And I think that was really good to get my mindset ready for it. So I've basically been preparing to be the owner of Cornerstone since I started. And then with Mackenzie and I working together, we definitely fostered a relationship from the beginning. And that was really important to our founders, that we did have a really good working relationship. So Mackenzie and I were together at least once a month from the beginning of my time working at Cornerstone, talking about different areas of financial planning. And then I think in 2018, that's when it morphed into, okay, well, actually, now we're going to start talking about different areas of actually running the business. Mackenzie, do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, and I'll just add too. So, when the two founders, Susan and Jill, hired me, I was the first financial planning hire, and then they had a client service manager. And so, when we put the job out there about hiring that next financial planner, it was, that person's going to be my business partner. And so, I think there was a lot of pressure on, we're not just looking for a financial planner. And I think, like Susie said, not everyone's cut out, one, to be an owner, and then two, to work well together. So it did put a lot of pressure on it. And like Christina said, like, I think everyone just really clicked in that first interview. And so I think that made things kind of easy. And we've been working so closely. So back in around 2018, so 4 years before our buyout, the founders started to give us different areas of the business management for us to really take on, and start learning that day to day and actually doing it, which I think was such good hands-on training with them still there that we could ask questions to. So Christina took over compliance and investments, and I took on accounting and HR. So we had been doing that work and, like we said, kind of running the business for about 3.5 years before the buyout. And so that just really created such a smooth transition for us.
Transitioning to independence for investment advisors. What do you think advisors should consider before a full commitment to independence?
Well, I don't think that it's enough for them to not be happy where they are, although I think that that's good impetus for them to go ahead and start exploring. But I think that they should start to envision what it is that they'd really like to accomplish as they would make this move. The first thing that they should look at are their clients, to think about how that they would react. They shouldn't be overly concerned about their clients following them in our experience, because generally the clients will. It's about good client messaging and a good strategy to do that, and having good reasons why you would want to make this move for the client's benefit. But just to take a look at your overall client base and think about them first, because this really starts and stops with the clients. And then crystallizing what their vision is for their new business, their new practice, not recreating the model that they're currently at, but rather thinking of it as, what would you like to change, and how would you model your client service model, if you will? How would you do that? Who would you like to have join you is another big thing. Not talking with them yet because it's too early, but at least thinking about that. And then pulling any contracts or affiliation agreements, et cetera, that you have with your current firm, because those would need to be analyzed at some point. And then it's about, do you feel comfortable taking control of the situation? Don't worry about what you don't know. The how and the what will be discovered as you go. But if your motivation is really clear and you know you want to do this, then I think you should. The things that you have to learn are new, but everything that is easy was once new. And we'll lead you through it. We'll simplify it as much as we possibly can. Doesn't mean that we just check a box. Things still have to be done correctly. But if the other guy can run a business, well, so can you. It's not that difficult once you get it up and running.
Adam, as you see these deals happening, are there any likely factors to be aware of that might inhibit or stall deals that buyers and sellers should be aware of? Is there anything they can do now to get ahead of the potential stallers?
Yeah. So one thing that I always talk about on these deals are, I think folks get really caught up in the numbers, and we could talk about multiples and revenue and growth and percentages and everything else. But the intangibles tend to draw a lot of the emotion out in these deals. And I think that's what stretches things out. Like, what's the operating agreement going to look like? Who's going to be in charge of what? What if there's a disagreement? Who has the winning vote? Those are a lot of things that I think people put as not foundational. Everybody thinks all the numbers first. Oh, what multiple am I going to get? How much money up front, right? So if you back away from that, you get out in front of the intangibles of how are we going to work together after this thing closes, right? As Rob mentioned, we got 4 years post-close on a lot of these strategics that we're going to be in a deal with. How are we best going to work together to better serve the clients and make this a really great experience for everybody, including ourselves? So I think when you neglect that side of it and you just focus on the numbers, I think timelines stretch out and things get tough. Right?
Yeah, I think that to us, the stallers are trying to position yourself as something you weren't. Like, if you want to make changes, change how your business operates, like if you've been running a business as a lifestyle practice, there's nothing wrong with that, but you can't all of a sudden say we're a high growth organization. Mm-hmm. The financials have to back it up. And then the other staller is the inability to actually pull together the right information in a timely manner. So it's just, again, it's almost like an admin, corporate finance function. It's, if you want to give yourself the best chance of getting through a deal, and I always say time kills all deals. Like, it's not your friend once you get it going. I'm sure it's the same in, when you're going through a lending process, right? Time kills deals. So you don't want to, the only certainty is today. So the further away from today, the more uncertainty. So it's, and financials are a big one.
So what are some strategies that businesses can employ to improve their debt to income ratio and increase their chances of loan approval?
Sure. First is really easy. Make more money. It's simple. And those are one of the things, obviously making more money, but I think it's being very diligent on, making sure that you're maximizing your cash flow.
Okay.
There's a lot of companies that are maybe, running some things through their business that, we use ad backs occasionally, but we don't like to use ad backs. And so, but utilizing this and making sure you're maximizing your company's cash flow, as well as, making sure that when you are borrowing money, you're borrowing it prudently. You're not over leveraging your company at a certain time that makes it very hard to, borrow more money when you have a real need that comes up.
So what are some ways that a business owner can demonstrate a strong personal financial investment in the company beyond just their initial capital contribution?
Yeah, sure. For us, one of the things, we think about is, and we set up our covenants sometimes this way is, how much money has a customer left in their business as time has progressed? Is it a company that the firm is being, its income is being taken out by the owners every year, or are the owners leaving some cushion in there, building some cash in the firm, building some of that equity. Those are the things, that a business owner can really use can show me that, hey, I'm not in this business to just take everything out of it.
Right.
I want to grow it. I want to be for the long term. I want to set us up for success. And that obviously it's their business, that they can run it, run it. They're in business to make money. And so, we understand that, but it's just making sure that, the commitment is there to leave some of that capital in the business.
How can businesses partner with service providers like Airify.io to maintain those safeguards that they implement? How does that happen?
So what we have a program, right? We have a platform that we utilize with Airify for our clients. So all the procedure writing, all the project management that it takes to actually get through this, is kind of an augmented service that we provide. It's called compliance. Shocking. And
creative.
Thanks. Typically, that's an 18 to 24 months kind of slog to get through that first one. And then after that, we're really in that, we're in repeating. You repeat it, it gets faster, you can do more reps, and we get better and better. And as the business changes, then we identify those things in one of those repeats.
Yes, that all makes sense. And I'm sure that initial slog, as you put it, is really the tough part. Not that there aren't changes that are constantly being thrown at you, but once you get that infrastructure in place, you've got the framework to then build and develop and kind of work around it.
I really think, you have to have some tenacity to get through the first iteration. That's what's keeping everybody on the sideline.
Yeah.
Man, it looks like a lot of work.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot of work. And usually things like that are, whether it's, again, a gym routine, a diet, or a security plan, right? Those are hard. It's hard things to do. But if you have a partner who can guide you through it, I often use the term, how do you eat an elephant? You eat them one bite at a time.
Yeah.
How do you get FTC compliant? You work on one thing at a time,
right?
And you get through it.
With your expansion in all these different markets, is there anything that you want to share as far as like an aha moment that maybe I wish I would have done things a little bit differently? Then, because you've obviously have done a lot in the last 5 years as far as the growth. Anything that stood in the way, any concerns, or like even positives, like a aha moment that, wow, this really did work, because you have the secret sauce of where you are today.
Well, I do think that a lot of aha moments, not just for us and not just in this business, but for any entrepreneurial endeavor, a lot of it is a realization that you maybe couldn't have seen or couldn't have known, but once you do see and what you do know, you have to grab a hold of it. You have to capitalize on it, really take advantage of a certain strength or opportunity that comes your way. We had a homegrown strength that I was not smart enough to realize was going to be such. And once I did, it became incumbent upon us to really build our strategy around that. And so much in the financial advisory profession, I think, is often people throwing things at a wall and seeing what sticks. And that may be a really good way to do things for a period of time. I think it's very common. But there is a moment at which you kind of realize what works for you. And I think people are better off going all in on one strategy as opposed to just continuing to try to throw a lot of different things that maybe aren't as authentic, aren't, you're not building a lot of momentum around them. That in our case, what worked for us is something we decided to really build our whole firm around. The one area that I wish we had more time to devote to, it isn't that I'm looking for inorganic growth, but our sweet spot for hiring advisors is not to hire people with a big book or big rainmakers. And that's what so much of the business is focused on, is everybody wants, those people that are really good rainmakers. We feel that we can bring growth to the advisors who work for us. So unlike the industry that might want people who are mediocre advisors but great rainmakers, we want people who are great advisors that care about clients, that are accustomed to being relational and professional, and we are going to provide them the business growth, that rainmaking, that business development. We kind of have that mousetrap already in place.
So go ahead.
Just real quick, the other thing that I know you'll appreciate as well is we're going to take a look at that book of business, right?
Yeah.
That's under management.
Yeah.
We're going to dig through that. We're going to look for any concentration risk, the average age of the client, the household size. So we're really going to get into those type of details as well, and just really understand, what the book looks like. If there's been any organic growth over the last few years, what that looks like, and really take a hard look at that.
That is such a major topic for us right now, the organic growth component. I mean, that is the single most important driver of valuation. I was at a conference in New York earlier this week with Pershing BNY, and Bob Worrells from Hightower was on stage talking about exactly that, just how important it is to see some level of base organic growth exclusive of market so that it shows a business development mindset. He talks about how if somebody's at 0 to 1, I'm not going to take you to 15. But if there's 5 to 6, I know I can do some things to juice that or make that more attractive. And our CEO, Bert White, has talked oftentimes about the sort of leaky bucket problem that we have right now in our industry. Most clients are working with advisors that are inside 5 years of their own age. So as we see this succession crisis with advisors, that is coinciding with, God forbid, clients wanting to actually withdraw the money they've spent their entire life saving. So you need to be growing at anywhere from 5 to 10% just to sort of tread water with client distributions if you're of, a more seasoned age in our industry and you're looking.
It goes back to just having a deeper bench on your own team with different age and demographic groups so that you can help fill those holes in the bucket.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah.
Right. How many times do we see that, you get that G2 in there and the organic growth explodes? It's amazing.
It is.
Like they've been holding back, just, waiting for that opportunity. And that's really neat. I love hearing those stories of, these G2, the women that I was talking about, they bought in, and the amount of organic growth they've had year over year is just phenomenal.
Right.
And they're very proud of it. And the sellers are proud.
Oh, they should.
One is just so proud that this is what they've left in these folks' hands, and they've done so well with it.
I mean, they're driving such tangible enterprise value for that G1 advisor. It's really exciting to see. And the enthusiasm there too. It's catching.